I think, well, there's a lot of change going on in the world. We have AI becoming ubiquitous. Humanoid robots are about to enter both the home and offices and factories. That's going to have an impact. We own actually a company called 1X Technologies, which just launched the first humanoid robot to the homes in the world.
Yeah.
1X. Number one in X, yeah. And they'll be delivering robots already next year to homes and then to businesses.
Risk is a really significant element of progress. Then if you don't take risk, as you said, no reward, but no progress on a personal side and on a business side.
And that means I think the human-to-human contact will be very, very important. And more important actually going forward than maybe even than in the past.
When you want people to do things differently, you need to help them thinking differently. Welcome back to Culture and Coffee podcast, where we explore purpose, leadership, and culture, and how this is brewing together to shape great companies. I'm actually very excited today with a fantastic guest, Christian Sinding. Christian, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you here. Christian has an incredible track record on obviously building incredible businesses and is used with transformation and growth. Christian joined EQT in 1998, became CEO and managing partner in 2019, and under his leadership, the company grew to become the third world's largest private equity firm, obviously in the world. And amazing track record. And that's why I'm sure that we have amazing opportunity to learn from Christian today. And we'll talk about how he has built a purpose-driven organization, even within then the financial, or I would say the private equity environment, while steering global growth, and how actually culture has been one of the dimensions that has helped him to select organizations to invest in, but also to grow those assets moving forward. But first, as you know, here it's about coffee as well, because we believe that the coffee has some parallel with culture. Then how do you like your coffee? Do you think that it's something which is like an energy drink, or on the other side, a stress builder, or anything in between?
Great to be here. And cheers.
Cheers.
So I like my coffee black, and I have a couple of cups in the morning to, I guess, get going and start the day.
Well, Christian, before we are diving into the topic, what I would like also to understand a little bit is from a personal side, then what culture or values has been around you before you have been into the business, in order that we understand a little bit more your personal environment before going into the business side.
Yeah. You know, I grew up in Norway first, where I'm from, with Scandinavian values, and Scandinavia is a very open culture, very collaborative, quite flat, both in companies and in the country itself. You know, we call our prime minister by the first name.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then I lived in the US a number of times. And then with EQT, I've actually been living in 5 different countries, including now Switzerland, for the last 11 or 12 years. My parents were both entrepreneurs. My father in advertising and my mother in cosmetics distribution. And I think, so I kind of grew up with an open mindset, I think, and connecting with people, being curious, and liking action, I guess you could say.
Okay. Yeah. No, actually liking action and coming back to that Nordic values. I can echo this. I've been starting my company in a Danish organization called Past.
Yes.
And that has been my first contact with corporate culture. And I have to say that I still have very good memories of it. It was a lot about dialogue, about the flat organization. That is somewhat what we're trying to recreate here also in Stroman, within that flat organization, to make sure that everyone is accessible, because that's this kind of open dialogue which is creating innovation and speed decision making. But we are going to come back to this. In one of your interviews, you described yourself as a why not person, meaning that someone who is pushing boundaries, looking at creating opportunities. And I'm really curious to see how that mindset has shaped the EQT growth and how you have looked into this kind of mindset also in the different portfolio companies that you have invested in. Then my first question would be, when you are assessing companies and deciding whether you invest or not into it, how culture or values are one of the criteria that you are looking at?
Yeah, it's super, super important. For EQT, we've had our culture and our values actually at the core of EQT since day one. But it wasn't until 1997 or 1998 that we started communicating them a bit. But it wasn't until 2007 or so until we formalized them. And I think the formalization of the values was actually helpful because it helped us create a language around it. And people know that you can actually then use the values to evaluate organizational design, to evaluate hiring of talent, development of people, promotions, and actually we also say that kind of the fastest way to lose your job at EQT is to work against the values. And while we're not a formalized company, actually one of our values is informal, exactly what we talked about, so that we can have good communication. Okay. Creating a little bit of structure around the values actually helped us a lot, because then you have a framework which you can move fast within. So when we look at new companies to invest in, we do a lot of research on the culture of the company itself, the management team, how the management team comes together, how they communicate, how it's built, the organizational design, and we asked, when you're buying a company, we have a lot of specialists with us. We have executives like you helping us. We have consultants. We have bankers. We have accountants, lawyers, and everything. And most of them focus on their particular field. But we always ask an extra question, and that is, how did you experience the people? How did you experience the culture? And we ask them to try to define that. Do you have any metrics or specific metrics you're looking at? This is really hard. So a lot of it's qualitative, really. And then what we've started to do over the last years is we check something called Glassdoor. Yes. Which is which is outside in, but a lot of information about basically a happiness index. How do people like working there? What's their feedback? But Glassdoor, you know that you have more people that are going there complaining than the people that are happy to say. You do. Then how do you manage the bias? It's very tricky. We've tried to find the perfect system, and we haven't. And then we use word clouds and things like that to bring it together. And the important thing is for us as owners, it's not necessarily whether the corporate culture is good or bad or slow or fast. It's knowing what it is. So we made some mistakes. We bought a company that was in retail, online and offline. This is quite a while ago. But it was one of those examples where things didn't go well, and it helped us sharpen the pencil on this question. And we put a much too ambitious agenda on this company. Okay. And the management team wasn't capable of moving that fast, nor was the organization. So we had a real disconnect between the owners and the board, the management and the company. And that ended up not being a successful acquisition for us. And therefore, we said, okay, we need to get smarter around, when we design a plan for a company that we're investing in, it has to fit where they are today. And if we need to change a lot, then we need to bring in new managers, new leaders, right? If we just need to accelerate, then we can maybe create that inspiration through coaching or guidance or boards or whatever. So it's really a very interesting question. It's the hardest, I'd say it's the hardest part of private equity. But actually, which is interesting related to what you are saying, would you say that even if you look at the business opportunity being super exciting, if you find out that the culture is not where you want it to be, you would still believe that with bringing new management, you can
be intentional about cultural change, that you can bring the culture to where you want it to be in order that you can drive the success that you are looking at. But how long would it take then in your business planning to transform that culture in order to get to the performance that you are looking at?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question, really. And I don't think you can fundamentally change a culture. But for example, Galderma, which is now a wonderful public company here in Switzerland, that was partly owned by Nestlé, partly owned by L'Oréal. Was a carve out of a very large group. It wasn't totally integrated. It didn't really have a particularly strong corporate culture. So we brought in a new CEO. He brought his CFO together with him and some other talents. We had a great board of directors that could support them, and we helped create a winning culture. During the 5 or 6 years that we've owned the company, and that was very deliberate because we knew we were buying. It's a fairly big company, but compared to Nestlé, quite small.
Yes, of course.
So we had to then. We thought a lot about this. How do we create a winning mentality when this company becomes a standalone business? So that's a really good example of where it worked well, and we took it seriously up front. And it was actually such that we would not have bought the company had we not had the chair and the CEO already lined up from before, because then we got the confidence that yes, we can do this.
Okay. Yeah. And then actually, it's a very good example. Is there any? For example, specific values or part of that culture in Galderma that you have been very clear that you wanted to change and moving from where to where? What has been, for example, the specific focus of that cultural change that you have implemented there?
It's a very good question, and I'm not in the board, so I don't know well enough. But what I can say is that the mentality went from being a bit more careful and conservative and maybe rules oriented to becoming much more entrepreneurial. And there were a lot of exciting new products, new prescription drugs being innovated in the company, and we kind of helped unleash a lot of that potential. So we tried to give confidence to the leaders to say, yes, you believe in this, let's really go after it. And that's why it's also now very successful as a public company, because it has a really long growth runway. So there were all these wonderful things in the company, and we worked to kind of unleash that potential. That's what we did, yeah.
Thinking bigger or having that, we are going back to the opportunity standpoint.
Yeah.
And you have seen many companies with all the portfolio that you have been responsible for, at least investing in and following up. Would you say that you are able to identify 2 or 3 specific traits or specific mindset or beliefs that are always there and recurring for really high-performing companies, that if they are not there are very few changes that it's going to work very superbly? Yeah,
actually, this is interesting. I did a poll of our most senior investment committee members at EQT a few months ago, actually. And I tried to distill it down in, what makes a great investment? It was a very simple question.
That's one of the very exciting
simple question,
yeah.
Really hard to answer, right? So I distilled it down into one a thematic industry. So like Straumann in an industry which is doing good and growing and developing for the long term. So you have some wind at your back. The second one is actually a team that can execute, because a lot of management teams have and leaders and others, they have a lot of good plans, and you often know what to do, but for some reason it doesn't always get done. Right? So execution, and particularly since we own companies for on average 4 to 5 years, it's not that long. So if you're going to drive change, you have to drive fast. So execution is important. And the third one was the most important, and that was actually values and culture. Crystal clear. And the sub-points behind that were CEO. And not necessarily just the person, but leadership and making sure that the values and the culture are developed, that there's a relentless execution in the plan. And then with that wind at your back, you combine those, and that's kind of the secret of success. And of course, like we just talked about, the first one is easier to understand for the future. The second two are much more complicated.
Yeah. And actually, just piggyback on this. When you are recruiting CEOs for those portfolio company that you want to bring this kind of new culture, then what kind of traits or personalities, specific attributes that you would be looking at then, in order that it could transpire or cascade down in the organization afterwards?
Well, it's I think there are some common traits. One of them, I believe, is this "why not" kind of mentality. This, and we compare that to the "yes, but." Oh, yes, that's a great idea, but.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And and it's like, sure, why not? Let's go for it. And if it doesn't work, we'll change. We'll set we'll adjust it along the way. So this opportunity oriented, forward leaning kind of mentality, I think, is very important. Second one is, particularly in today's environment, some kind of empathic leadership. And a leadership which you embody, I think, which is open, curious, interested in people, giving responsibility and accountability, because you have a lot of power as a CEO, but that also means that sometimes you become a bottleneck, right?
Exactly.
If you use that power too much to yourself, so you should really empower others. That's the magic I think that CEOs have, is to empower others around them, and then it's this intensity of wanting to deliver, and if you can find some of those elements together, then I think you have a really good chance. Of course, then behind that we can analyze how you set up their team, the players around the CEO, etc. But that kind of cascades from that choice. Yeah. So that's other than buying the company, the CEO decision is the most important one we make.
Well, thanks for all those insights. And actually, what we can make from what you are saying as a conclusion, which I think is interesting, is, and I think that's the experience that I've seen within Stroman as well, one can shape and be intentional about culture in order to make sure that we can design it in a way where we can have the opportunity to design the specific values or mindset that we want to see for success. Now, cascading this in the organization is one of the major challenge. Then what are, for example, the best examples that you have seen in organization where you wanted to change and being intentional about culture, how they have cascaded that and executed the fact that the company by itself changed as well and adopted values that were potentially different at the beginning?
Well, I think what first comes to mind actually is what we've done at EQT, because we've more than quadrupled since we went public. And going public is also a big change. So you can imagine the amount of people change that we've had at EQT over the last 6 or 7 years. And we've gone from 400 or 500 people to 2,000 people. We've become truly global, and we've integrated other companies into the EQT platform, like BPA in Asia, which is a fantastic business. And what we really work hard to do is to integrate every people decision around, or integrate values into every people decision. So when we have our 360-degree reviews that we do twice a year, the values are actually explicitly stated as part of the review. So you need to talk about it. You need to think about the values.
And do you rank those?
Yes, we do.
With numbers, like from 1 to 5, saying, on the creating opportunity, you are free, or
we do actually.
Okay.
But we don't lean too much on them, because we're so international now. Also, if you compare a German ranking to an American ranking, at Germany a 3 is great. In America, a 3 is terrible.
I agree. Out of 5, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we try to be careful with it, but we use it as a guide. But I think the important thing also is the conversation, and when we're building leaders. So when you become, the ultimate position at EQT is to become a partner, and then you can lead investments, take responsibility, and you're a part owner of the firm, and all these things. And so the partner process, with the promotion process there is also very much centered around the values. Is this someone that can, that can represent EQT in a good way? Is that person someone that can lead and inspire others? Do you have the backbone to withstand pressure? All these kinds of things that are embodied in there. And are you respectful of others? It's very important to us in our values. So we do that, and then we communicate a lot around it. So like you're doing now with this podcast and other things you're doing, lots of communication.
Then let's go about the values. How many values do you have?
We have 5.
Okay.
We have high performing, entrepreneurial, respectful, informal, and transparent.
And how do you train? Do you actually train on those values, or
it's well, we do have an academy, the EQT Academy, which starts with leading yourself, and then it goes to leading others, and then it goes to leading the business over time in different modules, and a lot of that training is built around exactly this, around the values, around around culture. And our culture actually changes a little bit. The more international we become, the culture in the Tokyo office is of course a little bit different than the culture in the Stockholm office, just like at Straumann.
Yes,
but the values are the same.
Yeah.
So we work through the values on all those.
You were talking about storytelling, actually. What is the one which is resonating the most with you? The one that you like to tell? Because I think this is really something which either impacting you or that you have personally went through, or can you share one of the storytelling that you are then sharing with the new EQT joiners or whatever that are always really having some deep resonance within you?
I have 2 that pop into my mind, actually. One is with my colleague Thomas, who ran EQT before me, and he's been a close colleague and a mentor of mine in many years. And in 2014 or so, we realized that the world was becoming digitized. Everyone was moving into the cloud, and EQT had old IT systems. We were behind the curve, and we were not able to use data in a particularly good way. So Thomas started doing some research on this together with a very techie guy from Stockholm, and they found out that we should move the entire firm to the cloud. So everything, from back office to the front office, email, Zoom, or whatever, all the different.
10 years ago.
Exactly. So very, very early, and the company hated it. Everybody said no. This is crazy. I want my Outlook. I want I want everything on my laptop. I want the offline files and all this kind of stuff, which of course meant that we couldn't share data in a particularly good way.
I can relate to this.
So Thomas,
suddenly you say, well, I cannot. I need to be connected all the time. I'm not having that opportunity.
And the IT department said at EQT, we weren't that big then. We were maybe 300 people or so, but the IT department said, no, this is not going to be safe. This is not going to be secure enough.
Oh yes, of course.
In the future. And then the guy that was working with Thomas, he said, well, who do you think has better IT security? Do you think it's Google, which is in the cloud? Or do you think it's EQT? And we're like, probably it's Google. Probably little EQT is not that good at IT security. So actually what he did it was pretty tough. He changed out the entire IT team, brought in the guy that we were working with and a whole new team. And we moved completely to the cloud in a matter of 6 to 9 months. And that set EQT up for much better collaboration across the world. And actually, when the pandemic hit 5 years later, our entire firm was in the cloud. So everybody had laptops, everybody had cameras, everybody knew how to use Zoom, everybody had access to all the data all the time. So we didn't know, we had no interruptions during the pandemic whatsoever. So this future-proofing mentality, we call it in EQT, is actually really, really cool. So that's the story that comes to mind, which is really, it's an internal one, but it's strengthening the backbone of the company.
And we
started AI at the time too. We started Motherbrain already 2015.
And any story about the transparency or the informal side, more on the let's say soft side than the business per se?
Yeah, I mean, we're so transparent that our founder and chair Connie, we all have open calendars.
Okay.
Everybody, 100% open calendars. And Connie's assistant said, "Well, you're the chair now. We're a public company. Shouldn't you have a more private calendar, like you can see when you go to the doctor or to the dentist or whatever, or meeting your daughter for lunch or whatever it might be, right?"
Okay.
And he had like this visceral reaction. He's like, no, if I start to close my calendar, what's going to happen then? And what do I have to hide, And actually the fact that I take vacation and have private engagements, it also shows that you can have a life while working at EQT. We're an extremely hardworking industry and a very, very hardworking company. So back to leadership, that was a very good one.
That's a very
the pressure,
strong one.
of course, is to become more private. But if you think about what transparency means, it's also a lot of power. So if you keep information to yourself, it's a little bit like like this.
Yeah.
It's not very collaborative. Right? But if you share information, like we're doing now, it's much more inspirational. So if you can keep that at the core of the business, this transparency of information flow, if a problem comes up, you're okay with bringing it out, because people like to hide problems. This is human nature. But if you can actually share
or at least
then we can
it
fix
goes fast at the coffee machine, but
Yes.
not really on the...
No, exactly.
Yeah,
and not
the
hide,
management
but
side.
it's more difficult to share a problem than a success.
Yeah, of
But
course.
if you have a transparent culture, then you can put the problem on the table. You can help find the right people to fix it and move on.
That's what Stroman we call psychological safety.
Exactly.
And making sure that you have the capability to share as much the challenges than the successes. Because very often, the earlier you know the problem, then the better, the faster you can close it. But as soon as you know that when it's too late, then that's where you are facing really big problem. Then this psychological safety, it's a big topic. It's not always so easy to put your arms around it in how to further develop it in an organization, but this is really critical for success. Yeah,
It is actually, and it goes back to accountability and responsibility. That you're accountable and you're responsible, but if you make a mistake, it's okay to make a mistake. But actually we try to encourage people to, put the problem on put the problem on the table. Share the things that are challenging you, because maybe somebody else has had a similar experience and can help it out. And that creates also a bond between people, Yeah. So this psychological safety is we don't use that terminology so much because we have the transparency and stuff, but that's exactly what we try to get to.
Well, again, then, as culture is so important and values for success, for the leaders that are listening to the podcast and they want to start somewhere, to be intentional about cultural change, where would you advise them to start? Because when you look at, I want to start transforming culture, that's like both a buzzword and at the same time a task where you need to get the first step in order to get started. What would be your advice to get there?
When I took over as CEO in the beginning of 2019, that was the year we were going public, and we had at the time we had a vision, mission, and purpose, statements, but we felt like we needed our purpose statement was getting a little bit old, so we needed to refresh it a bit. And it ended up being making a positive impact is basically the short story of it, and through making a positive impact, we can be impactful owners, we can be impactful towards broader society in a positive way, and then we added a few words to it, so it's actually future-proofing companies and making a positive impact.
Yes,
and
fully agree.
We've grown so fast at EQT and done, like I talked about earlier, that it was actually very important for us to bring a lot of people along in this super fast growth journey. And of course, it comes back to the values all the time as well. So I think that's one way to go. And then actually formalizing it and keeping it pretty simple. We actually tried to remove one value because we felt that 5 was actually too many. Sometimes you forget one or whatever,
Yeah.
so, and then we tried to remove informal because that was a little bit misunderstood in Asia, for example, where you maybe are more formal wearing, you wear a tie a bit more often. There's a bit more formality around meeting people, and there's a bit more hierarchy in society. But that wasn't the point of informal. So there was a revolt against actually removing the word informal. Because informal meant for EQTarians, as we call ourselves, it meant that you're actually free and open to discuss any issue with anybody.
Approachable.
Right?
And
I'm approachable, you're approachable, the doors are open. Yeah. Together we find the best answer. So that was also really powerful. So when we tried to change it, once it was set, no way, you know.
It's really interesting because one approach does not always fit every situation. When I look at the Stroman history, we have been at a turning point in 2013 by not doing good at all, being so much internally focused that we lost the momentum of the organization, facing a lot of challenges from the outside world with the financial crisis that has been hitting us strong, being premium only. And I think that has been more at the beginning from a survival need that we need to change some of our values, being customer focused, not making assumptions from customers, but the other way around, asking them what they want and not thinking that we know everything, and having that capability to push boundaries, create opportunities, and not thinking that our environment will be protected forever. Yes, there is competition which is coming. Yes. And we had to, on the one side, generate from the top-down side some key values that was critical for survival, and at the same time embed some of the historical values about quality, dialogue, collaboration that was still there, but that we needed to be unlocked in the different manners. And depending of where you are, actually, that's pretty interesting how you can shape culture from a different perspective. Yeah, actually, it's also, we are a strong believer about that iceberg, about which is when you want people to do things differently, you need to help them thinking differently. Because telling them you have to do things differently without changing some of the mindset or value system does not work, because it's all about constraint and not commitment. Then we are starting from the iceberg model, which is at the bottom that you don't see is the mindset and the values that are driving the behaviors, and those behaviors are driving the culture. And we are all saying always our motto here is that mindset drive behaviors, the behaviors drive culture, and culture drive results. Then we start by mindset. And we are working a lot on the player-learner mindset, which is a little bit close to what you were saying about looking at opportunities, making sure that you look at taking ownership instead of blaming whatever you have around, which is the victim mindset. Then we are talking about the player mindset on this side, and making sure that you are learning all the time, because again, failure is part of the process. I think really failure is part of growth. Risk is a really significant element of progress. Then if you don't take risk, as you said, no reward, but no progress on a personal side and on a business side. Then it's all about trying to influence, and what we studied, influencing mindset and helping people to see things differently. Then you have different behaviors at the end. But obviously it takes time, and managers and leaders have to role model it also, of course, at some point.
You do.
How, because you have actually, of course, a direct impact on your own organization at EQT. But how you are doing this with your portfolio companies, what's the, except, changing CEOs, or at least selecting the right CEOs, how you still having a regular measure into those kind of culture of your portfolio company? And if you would say there is one very good example of a portfolio company that you have been able to change the culture, except the Galderma that we have seen at the beginning, how did it work, or what did you measure exactly? Or it's also engagement as an example, or the more soft key performance indicator?
Like I said earlier, this is the hardest area to systematize. And actually, the Wallenberg family is our biggest owner. And one of the Wallenbergs said a few years ago to me, well, what EQT has been able to do is actually industrialize private equity. So, we now own something like 300 companies, about 140 of those are startups. So it's a very, very large machine. We have about 800,000 employees in total. But you can imagine then that there are so many different company structures, company cultures, and so many different types of leaders. So what we try to do is we try to bring in a board of directors actually that can really help get a deeper understanding of the business and what's needed on a culture. From a leadership perspective, where is the organization culturally? Where is it in terms of its mindset? Is this a group that we can win with, or do we need to drive change? And then of course you bring in, unless you have the right CEO, you try to bring in the right CEO to go on that journey. And the measurement ones the ones we use are, we use NPS scores. We use sometimes the headhunting firms have different models where they measure engagement. McKinsey has engagement models and all these things. And then actually we have an online, we have software actually, which is a company we invested in. We sold it to Workday. It's called Peakon now. I think it's called Workday Peakon, but that actually is monitoring employee engagement all the time, real time, and broken down in all different kinds of ways. And it's very difficult to find one model, but what's important is that we actually do it, and we find that even bringing 360-degree performance reviews into all companies is hard. Not all companies have it. Because it's penetrating, right? It opens up a lot of questions, and it's hard. It's something you have to learn how to do as a leader. It's something you have to learn how to receive feedback
the humility side of leadership,
on both
which
sides,
is yes,
right?
Exactly. From an EQT standpoint, how do you link sustainability and culture, and how you are, because we always think about private equity firm as being a lot into financial outcome and kind of the sustainability being on the side. But I know that you have been really adamant in bringing sustainability at the front and center in your organization. What link have you done here, and how you create sustainability as part of your culture?
So we connected, being the best owner of companies. What does that mean? That means that we're trying to make our companies the best they can be, the most future-proofed. And if you think about a company's longevity, if it's not developing in line with society's values over time, it's not going to be a winner. You remove the sustainability movement from all the politics and all the trendiness, and just say, hey, what are we trying to do? We're trying to make companies better. And if we can make them better and faster and leaner and more sustainable and more in line with society's values, and then we give an example, we say, okay, if you have two companies that are exactly the same and one is more sustainable than the other, which one is going to have the higher multiple on the stock exchange when you take it public? Well, it's going to be this one. Not necessarily because it's more sustainable, but because it has actually a better growth pathway to the future. And then with that, we also think it's going to attract the best talent.
Now, besides sustainability, another, I think, important topic that has somewhat invited itself after COVID within the corporate culture discussion has been the hybrid work approach. And I think you mentioned it very well, because I think at COVID you were already well ready to do a lot of remote work thanks to your cloud infrastructure. And in your organization, by definition, you have a lot of your then team members within those portfolio companies and so on, and you don't have one place. But in all the different portfolio companies you have, I'm sure that you have a lot of different policies when it comes to hybrid work. is there one that worked better than the others? How it has influenced the corporate culture since the implementation of hybrid work much wider into organization? And how do you see that evolving over time?
I think, well, there's a lot of change going on in the world. You know, we have AI becoming ubiquitous and impacting businesses more and more every day. And I think that's going to continue for a long time. Humanoid robots are about to enter both the home and offices and factories. That's going to have an impact. We own actually a company called 1X Technologies, which just launched the first humanoid robot to the homes in the world.
IX, you said.
This week, 1X.
1X. Then for everyone, this is incredible to check.
It's actually super interesting. And they'll be delivering robots already next year to homes and then to businesses more or less in parallel. So there's a lot of change coming. And of course, you have the whole started, well, it did start, but the digitalization started for a long time ago, accelerated by the pandemic. And that means I think the human-to-human contact will be very, very important. And more important, actually, going forward, than maybe even in the past.
In all the, as you are being known in pushing boundaries and creating opportunities, what is the one time where somebody has been, well, using the why not and bringing kind of dream mode that even surprised you, or saying like, wow, I think I would have never think about this.
Well, I actually gave the example earlier that I thought about, that just the one that popped into my mind was the one with Thomas and the changing the IT systems. But I think when I think of what I've experienced, what was really fascinating after we had gone public and we were having a lot of success, our stock price was performing very well. But we realized we were really weak in Asia. And we had a small business there that we weren't really able to grow. We weren't really able to develop. We weren't able to attract the best talent. And we said, wow, what if we could actually, acquire or merge with one of the Asian players to see if we can build a really, truly global company, right? And we thought it was going to be a smaller one, but actually, the one that we really started engaging with was BPA, which was the number one player in Asia, and we sat around the table and we talked about our two companies. And when we went 360 degrees around the companies, we were matching on almost every single dimension in terms of how we develop companies, values and culture, compensation, strategy, all these important things. And we realized, wow, and the wow moment was when Jean, who's now actually becoming chair of EQT in the summer of next year, he said basically, we can create, one of the world leading companies in this industry. And I said, yes, actually, we could become number one in the world in private equity together. And now we're actually number two, and we're on our way to becoming number one.
Then maybe, we would be able to discuss those topics, much longer. We need to come to an end. Still, my final question would be, if you would have the opportunity to share coffee with anyone you want on this planet, then who would it be and why?
I think I started thinking about business leaders, but I meet a lot of business leaders. So then I started thinking about politics, and this is an interesting question, and I know you asked Mr. Stram on this as well. And I thought of actually Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India. And I just talked about our Asian business, and Jean has built an incredible company, and now is going to chair EQT. And his India team is the number one team in private equity in India. So we have a big group there. We own lots of companies that we've done really, really well across many sectors. So I've been to India a number of times now, and I've engaged a lot with the team, and I've been pretty impressed with what they've done with the country. But since he's been the leader of the country, they have actually created a digital stack, the India stack. The entire economy is digitized, every single person has a digital ID and a digital wallet. They got rid of small bills, which created a lot of issues for for small corruption and these kinds of things. They've helped build millions of toilets for people. They've helped millions and millions of people with prevention, with actually female hygiene, invested a lot in education, in transportation. All their energy systems are, everything they're building is renewable. So they're trying to move away from fossil.
Okay.
And this has been very strategic and built, slowly but surely. And the cool way back to the digitalization, which is the one we know the best, that was actually done in great cooperation with business. So they brought in, the founder of Infosys and a number of other companies, and actually created the system. And they're even thinking now of licensing it to other countries, because there's so many countries out there, including Switzerland, that are not digitized. There's no digital ID in Switzerland. There is in Norway.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
All across Europe,
1.4 billion people have it in India, but we don't have it in Switzerland, which is interesting. So I think it'd be interesting to know how with that many people and such a complex, society, how he must have some incredible leadership skills. So that was a guy that I dreamed about. That could be interesting to hear. To have this kind of conversation with him would be
how he has done this. And I think, and we see that also in emerging markets. Brazil is a very also interesting country when it comes to digitalization. I've been very surprised spending time there, seeing that they are doing a lot of things also through digital side, because as infrastructure was missing at the beginning, they have been able to use more of this in order to simplify some of the small things. And that's, well, thanks, Christian, for being with us during this time. I think I really see that you are personalizing the EQT value. It has been very transparent, very open, very inspiring. Then thanks for the insights you gave us. I'm going to take some of them, and I'm sure implementing some of it. And I'm sure some of the people listening to it will also do the same. Thanks again. And for everyone, this is closing our second podcast, Culture and Coffee. We hope that you have enjoyed it, and stay tuned, because our next guest is already lined up, and I'm going to be really happy to share that very shortly. Thank you.